Yasharallah, meaning good morning and peace to the nation of Israel, modern day so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, respectable Israelites, being the Israelite foreigners scattered across the four corners of the earth, including within America, Babylon the Great, the main place of our captivity. But we are the Most High Yahweh's chosen people of the nation of Israel. So without further ado, as always, may the Lashon Kadash, being the holy tongue, as in the Paleo Hebrew, being the ancient Hebrew, I'm going to give all praises, glory, and infinite honor to my power, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whom is the God of the living, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Baruch Kodash, which is our praise to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, in the name of His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, and the Holy Spirit, whom is our strength and our Redeemer, and our light and our salvation. In the same tongue, I'm going to utter my Shana Kabuadium Lahasaquanium, Shal, Gadawarakab, meaning double honors to the apostles and elder bishops, great millstone, and Shalom honor and salutation to Bayashad Awadah, meaning the house of David of the 1/3 of the nation of Israel, along with the rest of the 1/3 elect men, women, and children of Israel. It's your fellow servant Malak Rayab, back at it again with another prophetic update through the spirit of prophecy, being the testimony of our Lord and Savior, Hamashiach Yahushai, who the masters of the world ignorantly refer to Jesus Christ. And it's another modern day World War III, prophetic update, the biblical war of all wars, being the battle of the war of Harmageddon, and mounting the troops of these heathen nations, including the lowest and vilest of these heathen nations, pursuant to the Edomites, further furbishing their swords, to go to war. All right, on behalf of these two major global entities. All right, the geoeconomical military superpowers, America, the horde that sits upon many waters, America, Babylon the Great, and the bear. All right, mentioned in Revelation 13 chapter, the Russians. All right, the modern day king of the Medes. Right, the modern day inhabitants of the land of Magog in Ezekiel the 38th chapter. Okay, are further furbishing their swords to go to war against each other. Okay, while the least of the flock of the Amalekites, the Zionist bankers, and their, and their puppets, okay, are further leading, are drawing these nations out into this war, okay, which is why the tensions are intensifying, all right, between America, the whore, Babylon the Great, and Russia. So this is on CNN under the military section, and it's entitled Eastern Union urges citizens to stockpile 72 hours worth of supplies amid war risk. All right, and this war risk warning on behalf of the EU, or issued by the EU, to the individuals, so the citizens of the member states, of the EU and even NATO. It's come shortly after France has issued a similar dire warning. All right, for the French citizens to for to prepare for war, all right, because we're in a time, pursuing Ecclesiastes 3 and 8, we're in a time of war. Okay, we're not in a time of peace and love, we're in a time of war, because it will further confirms that is these war drums beating louder and louder. All right. So it says European Union citizens should stockpile enough food and other essential supplies to sustain them for at least 72 hours in the event of a crisis. The European Union Commission has said in a new guidance released Wednesday, which is yesterday. The Commission stressed the need for Europe to shift its mindset to foster a culture of preparedness and resilience. The 18-page document warns that Europe is facing a new reality marred with risk and uncertainty, citing Russia's full-scale war in Ukraine, rising geopolitical tensions, sabotage of critical infrastructure, and electronic warfare as prominent factors. So this is the EU's, way of carrying out the agenda of the West, to further, paint Russia, to be the aggressors in this growing conflict, all right, between America and Russia, because the EU are, acting as a vassal states, which vassal states are pretty much, states or member states of particular countries, all right, that that offer their allegiance to a more powerful state, a more powerful government, and a more powerful government is America, Babylon the Great, prophesied as a hammer of the entire earth in Jeremiah 50, and I believe it's in the 22nd or 23rd verse. Okay, So that's why the EU, all right, on behalf of this this individual here, to go ahead and pull up her name real quick. All right. The European, or the president of the European president, or the president of the European Commission by the name of Ursula von der Leyen, has been, further, doing the bidding of Satan on behalf of the Zionist bankers through the NATO alliance of America, Babylon the Great, right? Which is why Trump has been uttering the same sentiment, that, a similar sentiment that the EU, or these particular member states of the alliance of America, all right, through NATO and so forth, should not be trusted, geoeconomically and so forth, because a lot of these member states of NATO and the EU still support Russia, all right, on the side of this Ukraine proxy war, for the fact that those very member states, still benefit geoeconomically off of cheap Russian gas or cheap Russian energy, for example. So this is that rift between, the Edomite hegemony, okay, that's going to further lead into a war, all right, because in this last world's war, there's going to be a lot of betrayal, all right, within the house of Basra, the modern day house of the Edomites, all right, because the Lord Yahweh Shem Shai, was to bring division upon the earth, as Yahweh Shai spoke about in St. Matthew 10:34. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and continue. This individual, it said, new realities require a new level of preparedness in Europe. President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, said in a statement, our citizens, our member states, and our businesses need the right tools to act both to prevent crisis and to react swiftly when a disaster hits. All right. So it says the Commission's European Preparedness Union strategy says citizens across the continent should adopt practical measures to ensure they are ready in case of an emergency. This includes having enough essential supplies to last them for a minimum of 3 days, the document says. In the case of extreme disruptions, all right, the initial period is the most critical, it says. All right. Yep. So that's pretty much the point there. So I'm going to segue over to the similar article on Fox News entitled, NATO leader warns Putin against attacking Poland. It says retaliation would be devastating. All right. It says NATO is preparing for all outcomes if the war in Ukraine ends, including a settlement favorable to Russia. Because essentially what Esau is trying to do is they're trying to, the Edomites on behalf of America and their NATO allies, the various member states of the NATO and EU allies that stands with America at this point, still standing with America at this point, are looking to further provoke Russia into violating the mutually, the MAD doctrine. So I'm going to get into that. All right, I'm going to bring up that information here. All right. It's the acronym MAD, okay, which is a Mutual Assured Destruction military doctrine, which says mutual assured destruction, principle of deterrence founded on the notion that a nuclear attack by one superpower would be met with an overwhelming nuclear counterattack such that both the attacker and the defender would be annihilated. So how Esau could further fulfill this is by using a false flag attack, all right, through, either through the member states of the NATO EU alliance of America, or even Ukraine, okay, being that Ukraine is another proxy army, being that was set up by the Israeli Mossad, to further provoke Russia. So they can use Ukraine for that purpose, by carrying out such an attack against Russia to provoke a response, and then justify violating this mutual assured destruction and deterrence policy, all right, that they struck with the Soviet Union of Russia, okay, several decades ago, which you can read about under this section here, Origins of U.S. Nuclear Strategy, all right. And by doing so, by Esau doing so through, through America and NATO, they could further justify activating Article 5, which I'm going to bring that out real quick. All right. Yeah, so this is so regarding the Article 5 clause, being activated on behalf of NATO. All right, it says Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty, the foundation of NATO's collective defense, states that an armed attack against one or more NATO allies is considered an attack against all, obligating other members to assist the attacked ally with actions they deem necessary, including the use of armed force. All right, so this goes into this information brought out in this article, where this NATO. Going to reload this article. All right, this NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte had warned Russia yesterday that they would be willing to attack Russia if their NATO ally Poland was attacked, which is interesting for the fact that I believe the leader of Poland is this is his name. I can't think of his name right now. Pashenko or something like that. And I believe he has a mutual relationship with Putin. Okay, so this is very interesting. This is sounds like more propaganda about Esau Edom, which is another part of his satanic devices that that the hopeful elect are not ignorant of, because we understand that within their Western media. All right, they're going to further control the narrative. All right, so that's to why Russia is more considered dangerous for humanity than America, Babylon the Great, when they're the ones that are provoking this last world war. All right, so no matter how Trump tries to kiss up to Putin, all right, to look to achieve peace, all right. Yahweh Shemashai has preordained for Russia to attack the whore, America, Babylon the Great. All right, so and we're right at that point, okay, knocking at the door of this last world war. So I'm going to start off in the book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 1. It says, "Blow ye the trumpet in Zion." Okay, it says, turn this music down. It says, "Blow ye the trumpet in Zion, and sound an alarm in my holy mountain. All right, let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of the Lord, Yahweh by Shemashai cometh, for it is nigh at hand." In Zion, to Zion is Hebrew for Zion, meaning monument. All right, such as a memorial. All right, remembrance. Okay, and that remembrance of the Heavenly Father is His spiritual bride, the nation of Israel, and all 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. Case in point. All right, and Shalom, Yahweh Shemashai Barakatah. Shalom to Akim tuning in, the brother Kawas Malak at the GMS LA. All right, the brother Amrai out there in San Antonio. I believe the brother Bakwashi out there in GMS Houston. All right, Shalom to beloved Akim, Water for tuning in. All right. So Joel 2:1 from the top says, "Blow the trumpet of Zion and sound an alarm on my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of the Lord, Yahweh by Shemashai cometh, for it is nigh at hand." So this is what the prophets of Jerusalem are doing, reincarnated. All right, sounding that alarm, blowing that trumpet. All right, proverbially by uplifting our voices like men. Like it says in Isaiah 58:1, like a roaring lion, okay, warning our people of their transgressions, okay, and thus, warning our people of the dire consequences, repercussions of not repenting, meaning to turn back to our power, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? Hence why we're prophesying, all right? Prophesying is a part of blowing that trumpet, sounding that particular alarm, danger, okay, that is coming to our people, because the Lord Yahweh by Shemashai is going to use Esau Edom, the sword on his left hand side, okay, pursuing the Psalm 17 and 13 and so forth, all right, to further provoke this war, this last world's war, okay, hence Trump's provoke trade wars and so forth, to further lead into this last world's war, to consume 2/3 of Israel and the main place for captivity, all right, which will happen to be the same place that's going to be, that much more devastated by this last world's war, and that's America, Babylon the Great, the place of drawing waters, of symbolic of egregious and grueling slave labor, captivity, okay, especially in corporate, through these mighty day Roman tributaries, we have to pay this devil, you see. So the main place for our captivity is being targeted, okay, by the Lord Yahweh by Shemashai, the man of war, to further lead into the redemption of Israel and our deliverance, through our salvation from the hands of, our Savior, Yahushua, all right, and Allah and the angels. All right, so this is Joel 2:2 says, a day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness. As the morning spread upon the mountains, a great people and a strong, there hath not been ever the like, neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. All right, Salaki. All right, Joel 2:3 says, a fire devoured before them, and behind them a flame burneth. Okay, you know what? Fire is coming to this place. All right, that baptism of fire, you know, that through that cleansing agent, specifically thermonuclear fire projected 1,000,000 degrees from these 200 million ICBM missile warheads, prophesied in Revelation, the 9th chapter, to sweep through this bitch and incinerate and destroy it. Okay, for all of his wickedness being upheld by this devil. So Joel 2:3 from the top, a fire devoured before them, and behind them a flame burneth. The land is as the Garden of Eden before them, and behind them a desolate wilderness. That's what America, Babylon the Great, is going to be converted to, a gigantic wilderness, a memorial of what not to do, is indulging in wickedness, which will lead this place into being a gigantic wasteland, all right, like a gigantic gravesite. It goes on to say, yea, and nothing shall escape them. It says, the appearance of them is as the appearance of horses, and as horsemen, so shall they run. So it's referring to the missiles, all right, the nukes. Okay, they're going to be running swiftly like horses. Okay, it says, like the noise of chariots on the tops of mountains shall they leap, like the noise of a flame of fire that devoured the stubble, as a strong people set in battle array. Which lines up with Isaiah 95. You know, going into the let me get that real quick. Isaiah 95 says, for every battle the warriors with confused noise. You see, that confused noise includes the sound of the collision of, iron weapons such as swords and shields and, bucklers, helmets, men wailing and screaming while they're getting put to death, and putting each other to death. This is that noise confusion. All right. It says, for every battle the warriors with confused noise and garments rolled in blood, but this shall be with burning a field of fire. So this could be this manner of war, this world will witness. See? So this is of these rumors of wars that Yahushua prophesied in St. Matthew, the 24th chapter. Okay, that we're seeing manifest through such reports. Okay, such as the EU. And urging the members of their member states. To prepare. To get uncomfortable. Okay. To stockpile, at least 3 days supply of, their necessities, man. And that's coming to America. Okay. Because eventually this geoeconomical war that the wicked elite are using Trump to wage against, their foreign enemies and even their allies will eventually lead into the collapse of this U.S. economy, which is well over $36.6 trillion in debt. That cannot possibly be paid back because it was orchestrated not to be paid back. Okay. All right. So it's going to eventually, this debt is going to continue to be spread throughout America through, the continuing printing of these Federal Reserve notes, these greenback dollar bills. All right. And in conjunction with, this trade war, on behalf of this Trump administration, it's going to further lead into hyperinflation. You see? And then inevitably, economic collapse in the U.S. All right, it's going to further lead into distress and civil unrest on behalf of these bug outs, these reprobates in the world, okay, who have spiritually invested in America, Babylon the Great, the whore. All right, and it's going to lead into a civil war, and then martial law would be imposed right after that. It's going to be all out war, in which would that era or this time would transition to a full-fledged war. It says all part of this domino effect of Esau's Hegelian dialectic. Okay, and these are part of the rumors of wars that Yahushua prophesied. So let's go back to Joel 2. Finish that out in Joel 2 and 5. Like the noise of chariots on the tops of mountains shall they leap, like the noise of a flame of fire that devoured the stubble, as a strong people set in battle array. Before their face the people shall be much pained, all faces shall gather blackness. And it says the same thing. It echoes the same thing in Isaiah the 13th chapter. Right? Their face is going to be blackened, right? I mean, they're going to receive death, in the midst of this last world war, all right? Being burnt to a crisp, All right. It says, verse 7, they shall run like mighty men. They shall climb the wall like men of war. And they shall march everyone on his ways. And they shall not break their ranks. All right. Referring to these nukes. It says, neither shall one thrust another. They shall walk everyone in his path. And when they fall upon the sword, they shall not be wounded. Okay. You know what? These nukes are going to be operating in unison. All right. Plunging the defenses, of these heathen nations without breaking their ranks. Okay, moving like an army. You see. So this is so speaking of speaking of sword. All right, I'm going to grab Isaiah 34 from the top. It says, "Come near, you nations, to hear, and hearken, ye people. Let the earth hear, and all that is therein, the world and all things that come forth of it." All right. So this further confirms that these nations, all right, these other heathen nations will be involved in this war alongside Esau, Edom. All right, to be offered as a sacrifice to the Lord Yahweh Shemashai, okay, for all the wickedness you heathen nations have done to Yasharallah, the nation of Israel. All right, not just the Edomites, but the rest of you nations as well. All right, Esau, just so happens, to be prophesied to get it the worst, because after this war, all right. The kings of Basra will be shackled up, with fetters of iron, prophesied in Psalm the 149th chapter, verses 6 to 8. All right, as a first fruits of slavery, and then after, when you Edomites serve us in our heavenly kingdom for 1,000 years, you will be eradicated. So you're going to get it the worst. Okay, and that's the aftermath of this last world's war. This is Isaiah 34:2. It says, "For the indignation of the Lord Yahweh Shemashai is upon all nations, and his fury upon all their armies." It says, he had utterly destroyed them. He had delivered them to the slaughter. Okay. It says they're slain. All right. It says their slain also should be cast out, and their stink should come up out of their carcasses, and the mountains shall be melted with their blood. Okay. It says, and all the hosts of heaven shall be dissolved, and the heavens shall be rolled together as a scroll, and all their hosts shall fall down as a leaf falleth off from the vine, and as a falling fig from the fig tree. Okay. All right. So that, the heavens, or the heavens being rolled together as a scroll, all right, is a reference to that mushroom cloud, by way of the reaction of, as a result of that thermal reaction. Okay. By way of these, ICBM missile warheads going off. Okay, creating a chemical reaction in the heavens. Okay, a thermal chemical reaction causing that mushroom cloud. All right, and that host falling down, violently, similar to, the figs from a tree falling. Okay, especially during a storm. Okay, and that's all symbolic of how hard Esau is going to fall, like how Shai said. Behold, I see Satan falling like lightning, roughly paraphrasing. So when you see lightning, it's like a blur. It's, it happens very quick, and that's symbolic of how quick and hard Esau is going to fall. All right. It's Isaiah 34:5. It says, "For my sword shall be bathed in heaven. Behold, it shall come down upon Idumea, and upon the people of my curse to judgment." Idumea, all right, is Greek for Edom, which is the nation of the Lord Yahweh Shemashai's curse. Okay, to judgment. As it says in Sirach, the 41st chapter, Esau shall go from a curse to destruction. I believe that's, he should go from a curse to destruction. All right. And, this is what this warfare represents. You devils going from a curse to destruction, because you are the disease of the earth. All right. So the penalty of your eradication is going to be by destroying the earth. All right. Percent of Revelation 11:18. So this is Isaiah 34:6. It says, "The sword of the Lord Yahweh Shemashai is filled with blood. It is made fat with fatness, and with the blood of the lambs and goats, with the fat of the kidneys of rams. For the Lord Yahweh Shemashai had the sacrifice in Basra, and a great slaughter in the land of Idumea." All right. And these swords are these flying swords, these nukes. All right. Our forefathers envisioned, these end time prophecies, they envisioned them to the best of their ability, because in terms of, ICBM missile warheads, some ICBM missiles, obviously that manner of technology didn't exist back then. So they described they described it to the best of their ability. In this sense, our forefather, Isaiah the prophet, envisioned these nukes as if they were flying swords. And a sword is symbolic of what? The instrument of death. And this is exactly what these missiles are. They're likened to swords. And they even, shaped like swords. Okay. So, so this is Isaiah 34:7. And the unicorn shall come down with them, and the bullocks with the bulls, and their land shall be soaked with blood, and their dust made fat with fatness. For it is a day of the Lord Yahweh by Shemeshai's vengeance, and a year of recompenses for the controversy of Zion. All right, and it's going to come in the midst of Harmageddon. So the segue over to Ezekiel 21:3 says, Salaki, it says, and say to the land of Israel, thus saith the Lord Yahweh by Shemeshai, behold, I'm against thee, and will draw forth my sword out of his sheath, and will cut off from thee the righteous and the wicked. And this is, Esau, Edom, okay, being used, all right, as a modern day sword on the left hand side of the Lord Yahweh by Shemeshai, all right, to eliminate the undesirables, all right, those whose names were preordained in the earth to marvel after this beast system. And as it says in Revelation 13:3, and the vast majority are going to further fulfill that prophecy by taking the mark of the beast, that chip, all right, and bathed in the lake of fire, being incinerated in the midst of this last world's war. All right. Jumping down to verse 9, it says, Son of man, prophesy and say, thus saith the Lord Yahweh by Shemeshai, say a sword is sharpened and also furbished. It is sharpened to make a sore slaughter. It is furbished that it may glitter. Should we then make mirth? It can timid the rod of my son as every tree. So this sword, all right, the same sword mentioned in Isaiah 34, these flying swords, these nukes are being sharpened, man. These nations are further preparing for war, okay, mainly against the whore America, Babylon the Great, because, certain member states of NATO and EU are going to turn against the whore. All right, it's just prophesied. Revelation 17:16, shall we get momentarily. All right, so this is why we keep hearing about these rumors of wars, specifically, as of recently, revolving around, the member states of the EU and NATO. Okay, whether they stand on the side of America or whether they some of them stand on the other side of Russia, which is the case. That just further confirms the division within this Edomite hegemony. Okay, see how I try to say, how if Satan is divided against Satan, how can his kingdom stand? Okay, so Ezekiel 21:11 says, and he hath given it to be furbished that it may be handled. This sword is sharpened, and it is furbished to give it into the hand of the slayer, Esau, Edom, the slayer, the fowler. Okay, the sword of the Lord Yahweh by Shemeshai on the left hand side. Okay, the man of sin and son of perdition. Perdition meaning destruction. Okay, because destruction is a part of the modus operandi, all right, or a track record of Esau. Okay, hence how he acquired America from the northern kingdom during the Spanish Inquisition, all right, by force through the blessing of his sword. All right, and that's going to further manifest the devil the Bible speaks of by further revealing who he is, more so as we draw closer to the end of his rulership in the beginning of ours. To get a couple of precepts off the comment board, all right, before I continue. All right, let me jump up a bit. Khan, the beloved brother Bakwashi, put Isaiah 14:23. I will also make it a possession for the bittern and pools of water, and I will sweep it with the besom of destruction, saith the Lord Yahweh by Shemeshai of hosts. You see, and this is, hey man, so that's what's going to happen. Okay, the Lord's going to sweep this place. Okay, when you sweep something, it's like a clean swoop. Okay, all right, because especially when you have whatever you're trying to sweep in a line of sight, in a direct line of sight. So when you have your eye set on it, whatever you're trying to sweep is usually swept up within a clean swoop. You see, so Lord's gonna sweep this place. He's gonna vacuum this place, if you will. Okay, by erasing it through this besom destruction, through this destroying wind of thermonuclear fire and radiation. All right, Salakia. Let me jump up a bit. Brother had put up Isaiah 14:22, so I'm going to bring it out as well. I'm going to jump up. All right. Get this precept by the brother Amariah. Zephaniah 1:14 says, the great day of the Lord Yahweh by Shemeshai is near. It is near and hasteth greatly. Even the voice of the day of the Lord Yahweh by Shemeshai, the mighty man shall cry bitterly. So these rumors of wars Yahweh prophesied is a further indication that Harmageddon is right around the corner, which will involve Yahweh and the angels destroying these heathen nations, prophesied in 2nd Ezra, the 13th chapter, which will eventually bring forth the salvation of Israel, as is prophesied in that same chapter. So Zephaniah 1 and 15. That day is a day of wrath, a day of trouble and distress, a day of wasteness and desolation, a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness. It was echo the same thing in Joel, the 2nd chapter. Zephaniah 1 and 16 says, a day of the trumpet and alarm against the fenced cities and against the high towers. And what is the fenced cities, otherwise known as a high tower? The lofty cities, prophesied in Isaiah the 26th chapter. Okay, referring to the lofty cities of the Golden City, America, Babylon the Great, known for its prosperity, hence what the Golden City is symbolic of. All right. So this place is going to go from riches to rags real soon. Okay. Zephaniah 1 and 17. And I will bring distress upon men that they shall walk like blind men. All right. Because they have sinned against the Lord, Yahweh Shemeshai, and their blood shall be poured out as dust. All right. So I can just then keep jumping. And their flesh as a dung. That's it. Brother Kawas Malak put Isaiah 24 and 20. The earth shall reel to and fro like a drunkard, and shall be removed like a cottage, and the transgression thereof shall be heavy upon it, and it shall fall and not rise again. Why is this earth going to be moved like a drunkard? Because by the impact of these 200 million ICBM missile warheads is going to move the tectonic plates from underneath the earth and cause a simultaneous earthquake within its earth. Okay. And so this is a future prophecy right around the corner, and as a result of this last world war. All right. The brother Yawasop put Isaiah 34 and 8 in NLT. For it is the day of the Lord, Yahweh Shemeshai's revenge, the year when Edom will be paid back for all it did to Israel. And that's it. Okay. That's it, man. Yep. It's a precept I quoted earlier. Kawas Malak put up Jeremiah 51 and 1. Thus said the Lord, Yahweh Shemeshai, behold, I raise up against Babylon and against them that dwell in the midst of them that rise up against me. Okay. Mr. Laki, I can't stop it from doing that. I'm holding it in place, but it keeps doing that. So it said, thus said the Lord, Yahweh Shemeshai, behold, I will raise up against Babylon and against them that dwell in the midst of them that rise up against me a destroying wind. That's it. Okay. Brother Bakwashi put Isaiah 14 and 22. For I will rise up against them. Okay. Says, for I will rise up against them, said the Lord, Yahweh Shemeshai of hosts, and cut off from Babylon a name and remnant, and son and nephew, said the Lord, Yahweh Shemeshai. All right. All right. So you Edomites, okay, you're going to be destroyed by the multitude. All right. Verse 23 again, I'll also make it a possession for the bittern and pools of water, and I will sweep it with the besom of destruction, said the Lord, Yahweh Shemeshai of hosts. All right. And this is exactly what's going to happen. All right. All right. Shalom. I believe that's a brother, Yowana, GMS chosen vessel, Yahweh Shemeshai Barakatah. Yep. That's the precept I was meditating on when I read that Ezekiel 21. Talking about the glittering, I think it was the glittering spear. This is Habakkuk. Bakwashi put up Habakkuk 3 and 11. The sun and moon stood still in their habitation. At the light of thine arrows they went, and at the shining of thy glittering spear. Okay, regarding the appearance of the nukes. Okay, including the ember or the fire of those nukes. Okay, before they collide and destroy this place, America, Babylon the Great. All right, Habakkuk 3 and 12. Thou didst march through the land in indignation. Thou didst thresh the heathen in anger. Okay. These armies marching like horsemen in Joel, the 2nd chapter, these nukes. Okay. They're going to march through the land. Okay. The sinful kingdom in Amos 9 and 8, America, Babylon the Great, and destroy this place, man. Okay. Yahweh put up, brother Yahweh put Nahum 1 and 8. But with an overrunning flood, he will make an utter end of the place thereof, and darkness shall pursue his enemies. That's it. All right. So the water to Akim for the precepts. Go ahead and bring out. I'm going to segue over to Revelation 17 and start at verse 7. In which the point is in verse 16. All right. So Revelation 17 and 7 says, And the angel said unto me, wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carried her, which had the 7 heads and 10 horns, referring to NATO. It says in verse 8, the beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. All right. And that bottomless pit, all right, is for a reference to Russia. Okay. That place was highly detestable before, more so when Esau was actually dwelling there, before he set foot over here, all right, to the so-called New World, where them apologists and theologians over there were putting their own people to death, okay, burn them at the stake for not accepting their religion and so forth, committing all kinds of detestable crimes through the, through the murder and the idolatry and all manners of sodomy and all manners of wickedness, okay. So it says, the beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not, and yet is. All right. So those whose names were not written in the book of life are going to wonder at these things. They're going to marvel at these things. Okay. Out of fear. Okay. And you know what I'm saying? And a lack of faith. Okay. All right. Of the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven that were not intended for them in the first place. All right. For the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven were only given to the elect of the nation of Israel. And this is why, pursuing Isaiah 33:6, only their mind shall be stable. All right. In the midst of this stressful time that we're entering. All right. Out of unrighteous, I myself included. That's a hopeful elect. So this is Revelation 17:9. It says, and here is a mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. The mountains is symbolic of governments. We actually broke that down recently at camp. All right. And there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. All right. They have one mind and shall give their power and strength into the beast. Okay. Says, and those 10 horns is the EU, formerly known as the EEC, otherwise known as the 10 toes in Daniel, the 2nd chapter. Okay. That was probably said to be partly, part iron and part clay, symbolic of being part strong and part weak. And this is why there's a division, all right, between America and these vassal states, okay, of the member states of the EU and NATO, okay, over, indifferences of sovereignty, all right, through their own geoeconomical military aspirations, for example. So Revelation 17 and 12 says, Salakia, verse 14. All right. And like I said in verse 13, these have one mind and shall give their power and strength to the beast. Why? Because God goes into, the understanding of vassal states. Okay. Matter of fact, let's look that up real quick. All right. Vassal states. A vassal state is a country or region that owns allegiance and often tribute or military service to a more powerful state. All right. Which, once again, that more powerful state would be America. In this case, the hammer of the entire earth. It says essentially a semi-independent nation under the suzerainty of another. We're referring to, the vassal states, okay, of the member states of EU and NATO. So going back to Revelation 7, that's why they're operating off of one mind, okay, giving their power and strength into the beast. Okay, this beast system, America, Babylon the Great. All right. All right. So now that's why there's a division between the whore and the EU conglomerate vassal states or member states of, this beast alliance. All right. So it says in verse 14, these shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. All right, let's go into the battle of Hammer-God one. And he said unto me, the waters which thou sawest where the whore sitteth are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. Because right now the whore that sitteth upon many waters, as it mentioned toward the top of the chapter, all right, is still America, ruling over these waters, these governments of people, confirmed here in Revelation 17 and 15, mainly through the strength that the petrodollar still has, all right, within these international markets, including Esau's military-industrial complex. So it says here in the point, Revelation 17-16, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. All right. So eventually, these very, vassal states, okay, aka member states of this beast alliance, okay, on behalf of, NATO and the EU, are going to turn on the whore. All right. All right. Forever those who have indifferences with America will shoot their nukes on this place. All right. This is why I mentioned, I believe in this article. Let me jump down. Jump down a bit. Yeah, I believe, it's actually Salaki. It was in the other article. I'm going to bring that out. This article entitled, NATO leader warns Putin against attacking Poland, says retaliation would be devastating. So let's jump down a bit. Yep. So the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte warning had come as President Donald Trump's return to power has shaken the security assumptions of the past decades. And here's the point. Okay. And has pushed Europe to try to wean itself off its security dependence on the U.S. Okay. With European countries planning ambitious new investments in weapons. And those new ambitions is attending to their own independent sovereignties, man. Okay. So and this is why these rumors of wars are further leading to this last world's war, including the division between this Edomite hegemony, where they will also go to war amongst themselves. So I'm going to continue. Revelation 17-17. For the Most High God, Yahweh by Shemashai, he'll put in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast, and to the words of the Most High God, Yahweh by Shemashai, shall be fulfilled. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city, and which reigneth over the kings of the earth. Okay, speaking of great city, let's go ahead and get Revelation 18-19. It says, and they cast dust on their heads and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, alas, alas, that great city. Okay, says, wherein were made rich all that has ships in the sea by reason of her costliness, for 1 hour is she made desolate. Okay, there's a lot of freight that takes place in America, Babylon the Great. Okay, so you look up that word, merchandise, all right, in the Greek, right, in Revelation 18-12, the Greek word there is gomos. Okay, going into freight trading, all right, through, these major docking ports through America, further confirming that Babylon the Great is America, it's not the Vatican, all right? It's a false doctrine that, a false prophet had spread a few years ago, right? I'm sure others were spreading that false doctrine, but these precepts in Revelation 18 chapter, further confirms that Babylon the Great is America. All right. So Revelation 18 and 20 says, rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets. For the Most High God, Yahweh by Shemashai, had avenged you on her. And it lines up, with the precept, the brother put, in a live chat in Isaiah 34:8 in the NLT. Okay, what's prophesied to happen to America in the main place of our captivity, Babylon the Great, is because of the wickedness, of Esau, Edom. Okay, the mighty day king of Babylon, of this golden city. All right, this is so like I said in verse 19, for 1 hour she made desolate by way of these ICBM missile warheads, these intercontinental ballistic missiles having the capability of traveling from their destinations, or from their starting points to America. Okay, Babylon the Great, within anywhere between 20 minutes to 30 minutes. Okay, including Russia. Russia's ICBM missile warheads, and even their hypersonic missiles. So this further lines of prophecy as to how America, Babylon the Great, is going to be destroyed in 1 hour. All right, Revelation 18:21 says, and the mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone, and cast it into the sea, saying, thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. So America, Babylon the Great, is about to be history, destroyed. And the conclusion of this destruction is The establishing of the everlasting righteous kingdom by Yahweh Shai, bringing that second holy covenant where we're going to be perfected, no longer knowing what it's like to sin. And see, so that's why we're hastening the coming of the day of our Lord, Hamashiach Yahweh Shai, to bring forth the kingdom of heaven, man. So, Adam Ratazah, this epistle is for the edifying, exhorting to elect, and to give all praises, glory, infinite honor to my power, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whom is God of the living, Yahweh, by Shem, Yahweh Shai, Barach, Rash. All right. For blessing me with the spirit to do this video. All right. And, and with that, call Allah like Yahweh by Shem Shai. All right. For blessing me with the spirit to do this video, which I pray is for the edifying, exhorting to elect. All right. Yep. He said, that bottomless pit is talking about Europe. Yep. Which is what I stated. All right. And he said, the beast that was is not, is talking about the fourth beast, the Roman Empire. Yep. And the splitting image of that, the fourth beast, is America, Babylon the Great. All right. All right. And the alliance of this beast system, all right, is going to be divided. All right. And it's going to result in destruction of these Edomites. All right. So, the water for you Akim. All right. And the skill for adding, it's greatly appreciated. If you're adding on to the lesson. And Shalom, Lavachayim, Shah by Yashad Awadah. All right. Shalom, Lavachayim, Shah by Yashad Awadah, Shah Yasharala, meaning peace to the elect of the house of David of the nation of Israel. All right. And on to the next one.